Hello and good morning, good afternoon and a very good evening to you, the good and wonderful people of the tube. Hope all today, hope you're feeling grand and all is well in your world. Hello everybody. Welcome to a Gig Stories video, people of the tube. Episode something or another. 4? 3? I don't remember. I don't know. I think it's 4, but it could be 3. I don't know. It's written down there. Anyway. So let's get to this one. So this story is actually crazy. Like the title suggests, ended in a riot. It did end in a riot, but not because of us. We had nothing to do with it, but it all will be revealed. So, this was in 2011, and we were due to play this pub in Scunthorpe. Our manager at the time had got us this gig, and he said, it is a pub, but they have a function room off the actual pub, and apparently loads of people go, big rock and blues fans go there, so it should be a good evening. Definitely wasn't. And definitely wasn't a lot of rock and blues fans in Scunthorpe. Anyway, so we turned up. The pub was down a road called Cemetery Road. And the pub's no longer there. It got burnt down. Anyway, and I'm kind of not surprised, as this story will attest to this. So, anyway, we went down there, we got there and pulled into the pub. It was a big, usual kind of like pub. It's white. It was on a housing estate in Scunny. And pulled in, went in, made ourselves known, said hello, we have a band tonight. And the landlord was like, oh yeah, cool. He was quite nice, actually. At this point, he was quite nice. And he said, yeah, if you want to just go through to the function room, it's just over there. Just go and, take your stuff in there, get set up and this, that and the other. I immediately noticed they hadn't put up any of the posters we had sent them. I sent them about 20 posters to advertise our gig. None of them were up. None of them were up. So I was like, oh dear, that's not good, is it? So I didn't hold out any hope. Anyway, we went outside again to get our stuff from the van and Carl's car, because I only had a small van at the time. I couldn't fit everything in. So Carl came separately and me and Carl went in my van. And we went outside. And as we went outside, there was these people. As we came out the doors, off to our left, which would be your right, people too, there was some people sat at like these little garden benches outside, and it was just concrete. There wasn't like a beer garden. It was just concrete, broken concrete car park, and then there was a road. Anyway, there was these blokes at this table here. They were already whammoed out of their heads. It was about 6 o'clock, and they're already smashed. Anyway, they were shouting, well, not shouting, but kind of raised voices, if you will, at another pub, which was like literally a stone's throw in that direction. So as we came out, these guys were here, and they were kind of heckling these other guys at another pub over there. And all that nonsense, and they were just kind of giving it the big un, basically, and this pub was giving it the big un to that pub, and that pub was giving it back. So they were obviously rival pubs, and I kind of saw that, and it kind of made me feel a bit kind of like uncomfortable, because I was like, oh god. Anyway, so we started unloading stuff and getting stuff into the venue. At that time, I was gigging with a Marshall double stack. Still, so I had my double stack, and Carl had a double stack PV bass rig, and then Kyle had his drum kit, and we had my PA system. And so we loaded in to this function room. This function room was huge, absolutely huge. I remember it being massive. No stage area per se. It was just like, that's where you play, right there on that mark. So we set up, and we were just messing around, having a laugh, and then we sound checked, and and we were like, oh, sounds really good. The room did sound good. It didn't sound. It was a bit echoey because there was nobody in there, and it was a bit empty and stuff like that. Anyway, we finished sound checking, and we thought, well, we'll go out and get some fresh air before we have to play. And it was a good 45 minutes until we had to play. Nobody in the pub yet at all, apart from maybe about 5 regulars in the other side, because the pub was kind of split. So if you think of it this way, POTT, so as you walk into the pub, so we're walking through the doors now, you would go down, and then right in front of you was kind of like an entranceway to the bar and behind the bar area, and then off to the right and the left were the toilets. So luckily we weren't set up near the toilets. And then as you got down to this kind of wall that was kind of a bit further down, left would be the function room and right would be the bar. And so the bar area had about 5 or 6 regulars in it, absolutely smashed out their heads, kind of like leaning on the thing like this. It was It was a bit tragic, to be perfectly honest with you. And it was really dingy. Like, there was one light on in there. I remember it just being really dark. And the function room, I remember being dark and lit by this red light as well. It's like a red lighting. I don't remember if that was my lighting rig. I don't think it was. I don't remember. But anyway, so we thought we would go out and get some fresh air. So we left the function room, walked out, and the blokes on this table had kind of multiplied. There was probably about 4 of them to start with. There was about 6 or 7 of them now. And the people at the other pub had multiplied, and they were giving it the big one. Still not screamy, shouty, but there were raised voices. You know, that kind of thing going on. There was a lot of kind of, you know, I'm macho kind of thing going on. I was a bit like... So we decided not to stay outside and went back in, and we thought we'll be safer in the function room because we don't want to get dragged into anything. Anyway, so we went back into the function room and just sat around and we were just having a natter. And gig time rolled around. 9 o'clock rolled around and there was no one in the function room. And I was like, do we wait a bit longer? Because sometimes it takes a bit of time. Sometimes when you're doing these pub gigs, your first set... Because normally at a pub gig, you're doing 2 45-minute sets with a 15-minute break in between. Usually your first set is to kind of like very minimal people. And it isn't until your second set, which is normally about like 10 o'clock or 10:15 or whatever. That's when the people start coming out and you start to get a bit more of an audience. Because people don't come out necessarily that early. So... we didn't really think anything of it, but I do remember going to ask the owner if we should start playing or what. And the guy said, I think he said something like, yeah, do it, it'll probably draw people in. It didn't. So anyway, I went back to the group. We started playing to absolutely no one. There was no one in this huge... It was like a medium-sized village hall, and there was nobody in there. Just us. There wasn't even any bar staff, because the bar was kind of like a D shape, if you will. So... it kind of like went like that, and this side was where all the regulars was, and this is where we were. There was no bar stuff on our side, so I was a bit like confused by that. And no one was in there. 3 songs, still no one. 4 songs, no one. 5, no one. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Whole first set, no one. Absolutely no one. No one even poked their head through the door to see who we were or what was going on. And we were like... okay, so this is definitely a paid rehearsal then, isn't it? Because no one's going to come and see us. So anyway, we finished our first set. A bit dejected. You do feel a bit dejected as a performer when no one's kind of there. You can't really perform to anybody. And in all fairness, it wasn't the first time we had done that. So we were quite okay with playing for ourselves and just kind of having fun, having a laugh and jamming around. We would just mess about, extend songs, try stuff we never tried. It didn't matter. So we were having fun. It was quite fun. Besides the depressing nature of no one being there to see us play. And plus, we've been sold a lie by our manager who said, it would be an amazing gig, there's lots of rock and blues fans go to this pub. They obviously don't. I don't know why he said that. He did that quite a few times where he'd lie to us, and we'd end up like learning it later on. And again, eventually that's the reason why we parted company with him, is because it just kept going wrong. Let's just put it that way. Lovely guy though. I've got no ill will to him whatsoever. I love the man. He's brilliant. It just as that went, it just didn't work, unfortunately. Anyway, so finished our first set. Thought, well, I want to get a bit of fresh air. It's kind of like stuffy in the pub, it's that kind of like close air. Nobody in there as well, so it's kind of like just a bit meh. So I thought, I'm just going to go outside, and we all decided to have a bit of a wander outside and get a bit of fresh air. Things were getting even more heated now, people at Tube. There was a lot of people out the front of this pub we were in, and there was a hell of a lot of people in the other pub out the front. And by this point, there was shouting. There was full-on, beep, 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 expletives everywhere, and it was just getting a bit sketchy, like very sketchy. I was like, oh my god, this is not good. I just remember like being really scared of it because it was getting a bit out of hand. No one had done anything yet, and I seem to remember you could see glass on the floor that wasn't there before, which I think someone had thrown glasses. They were starting to throw glasses at each other, or bottles, or whatever. I just remember seeing glass that wasn't there when we first arrived. And so as we came out, PeopleTube, so say for instance, so just give you an example here. So as we came out, those people are there. My van is literally here, and Carl's car was on the other side of my van there. And then basically there was like a little back bit, and then there was like a road that led down to this other pub, and it was all housing. You know, there was housing all around it, and then literally in front of us was a cemetery. So it, you know, it's a bit kind of like weird, to be honest with you. Very, very, very weird. Anyway, so things were getting heated, and again, we didn't stay outside. We bottled it and went back inside. We thought the best thing to do is just to stay out of the way of it. And we were right. Anyway, so we went back in, and we just went back into the function room. Again, nobody in there. We thought we're safe in here, which was kind of a good thing. So went back into the function room and just sat around talking. You know, I was noodling about on guitar. I remember, like, you know, I think Carl was noodling around bass, and we were just having a chat, and nothing really going on. And the function room was kind of so far offset, you couldn't hear the people outside screaming. So it was nice, you know, it was kind of like our own little haven, our own little kind of sanctuary, if you will. So we were a bit like, kind of like, oh, we're out of the way, it's okay. We're okay. And we had to kind of like keep reassuring. I know I had to keep reassuring myself. I'm okay. It's okay. So we did our 15-minute break, and we just went back on. We thought no one's coming, so screw it. We'll just go back on and play. First song in, I noticed the PA speaker near me, which I've still got them, but I'll talk about it in a sec. But they're clear plastic PV speakers. They're little 10-inch 12-inch speakers. They're not full range, but they're really, really nice. Kind of like, just for a vocal PA, they're perfect. And that's what I was using at the time, because I had a Marshall double stack, 100-watt Marshall MG head. Carl had his, I think it was like a 600-watt PV double stack, and we didn't need a PA to run the amps through. We were loud enough. Anyway, first song in, second song in, I remember like hearing this speaker that was literally maybe just about arm's length over to my right side, sounding weird. It was distorting. And I was like, what the hell's going on here? Why is my speaker distorting? And because there was no one there, I just, hang on a minute, let me just check what's going on here. And it was plugged in fine, the lead was fine, everything was fine. And I was like, and because it was so dimly lit, I couldn't really see, but I was like, well, it looks alright to me. I looked at the cone to make sure I hadn't blown the cone. Fine, speaker looks fine. Carried on, did another song, and it was just, no, it was distorting, it was crackling, it was fizzing, it was doing all this other stuff, and I was like, something's wrong. So we stopped again, and we had a look with a torch in the speaker, and what somebody had done in the time it took us to get from the function room outside, bottle it, and come back into the function room, somebody had gone in there and they had stabbed the speaker cone right where the dust cover meets the actual kind of outside of the cone with what looked like a middle of a pen. It was like literally a hole about 1.5 millimeters. They'd jiggled it about in there. They'd come into that room and they'd gone through the metal grill on these PV speakers, which was these kind of little round holes in the metal grill, and they'd stabbed the speaker cone. And basically, that was enough to weaken the cone. So when I started singing through it, it just went and started to tear apart. And by the time we looked at it, it was wrecked. Absolutely wrecked. So, yay to that person, whoever that was in the world. Thanks very much indeed. And I was, by that time, that made me really angry. I was like, for God's sake, pause on my phone. I was like, you can't do this. You can't just... And it made me start to worry about all our other gear. So we started inspecting all our other gear, making sure it was all still there, make sure no one had half-inched anything. They couldn't have anyway. They've had to have walked past us. There was only one way in, one way out, but you never know. But we checked everything. Nothing had been stolen. But again, PA had been sabotaged. It had been broken. So I was like, great. Anyway, we couldn't use the PA. So turned the PA off. And what we did for the next 40 minutes is just jam. With no vocals. We just had to mess around. And just did what we always did. Had tried to make the best of a naff situation. And I tried to make the best of a situation where I was thinking I'm going to now have to get a new speaker for my PA before the next gig, which was the weekend after, and I needed it. Which, funny if I didn't, I had to end up borrowing a PA speaker. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Anyway, so not very happy about that, but at least nothing else had been broken. My amp was still okay. Carl's amp was still okay. The drum kit was fine. My guitars were okay. Basses were okay. We're all good. And in all fairness, that is kind of like, you know, we got off lightly. Anyway, so we kept playing, and it got to about 11 o'clock, and we were just like, should we just go home now? Let's just call it a day. You know, we've done our 2 45-minute sets. We've done what we said we were supposed to do. They didn't advertise us. There's no posters anywhere, so, you know, bugger it. Let's go home. So we were just like, yeah, let's do it. So amps went off. You know, we started packing down, putting leads away, putting the guitars away, making sure everything's kind of ready to go. And I thought I'll go and talk to the landlord and get what we're owed money wise, you know, which I never like doing because I don't like money. Unfortunately, you need it, but I hate doing it. So I thought, no, I'll go and get it over and done with. And I think at the time, I can't remember how much we would get paid at that time. I can't remember it at all. People tube say 300 quid. I don't know. Just for the sake of argument, I don't think it was that much. So, you know, don't quote me. But say, for the sake of argument, 300 quid, we were supposed to get paid. I know, we'd done what we were supposed to do. You know, they'd hired us for that evening to do what we did. We did it. You know, we couldn't have done anything else. You know, we did what we were supposed to do. You know, you can't hire a plumber to come to your house, fix your taps, and then go, by the way, I'm not paying you because I didn't see you do it. Anyway, so... nice analogy, Dave. So went through to kind of like the locals bar area and said to the landlord, I said, "Oh, we're done now." I said, "We're going to pack up and get off." I said, so could we get the payment? And he was like, "Yeah, meet me at the other door." So I was like, "Okay, what's that?" So basically, it was that's the door where it kind of led into behind the bar area. He didn't want to do it in front of his regulars, obviously. So I walked back out the kind of like the bar area into kind of like, you know, this kind of like T-junction thingy bit. And I could hear something. I could hear something going on outside, but I thought they were just still giving it the big un. And that's where I just kind of like, I kind of left it. And I kind of blocked it anyway because I didn't want to have to deal with it. Anyway, he came out the door and said like, yeah, so it's 50 quid, right? And I was like, no, not 50 quid. And he goes, well, I agree with your manager. I'm paying you 50 quid. And I was like, no, you didn't agree. We didn't agree with 50 quid. You know, we've come all this way. We've played. You know, I mentioned that one of your patrons has broken my PA speaker that's going to cost me money to repair. So no, you're not getting away with just sacking us off with 50 quid. And it's got into a quite heated debate between me and him, where I was like, no, this is what we agreed. And so I rang our manager and said, speak to this guy, he doesn't understand what you agreed. Manager said to him, no, we agreed on 300, and especially if the PA speaker's broken, you should technically be paying extra for that repair because it happened in your pub and we didn't do it. You've broken our equipment. And anyway, this guy was like, no, we agreed 50 quid. And he was getting nasty, came off the phone, and this continued for about 5-10 minutes. It was mental. It was so unnecessary. And I said, and I was like, no. I said, we agreed 300. And he goes, no, I agreed with your manager 300. And I was like, got you. You just agreed. You just said 300. And then he just kind of went, ugh. And he got really nasty. And like, oh, fine. And swearing at me, abuse, you know, just verbal abuse. And I was like, pfft. And he went back into the thing and he got 300 quid out. It wasn't 300 quid, POTT. It was way less. I think it was probably like 150 or something like that. But I don't actually know what it was. A long time ago, 2011. And anyway, he came back through mumbling, here's your money. And he says, oh, you're not playing here again. And I said to him, mate, I said, I don't want to ever play here again. I said, no offence, but I don't want to ever play here again. You didn't advertise us. You didn't put up posters I sent to you. You didn't do anything to help us. Someone broke our PA speakers and there's craziness going on outside. I don't want to play here again. I said, that's fine by me. I had lost my temper by that time anyway. So I was like, you know, whatever, mate, get out of it. I'm leaving and I don't care. I don't care. You know, just on your way, mate. And so I took the money, went back through, said to Carl and Carl what a nightmare it was to get this money, and I was like, God. Anyway, kept packing down, and so we thought, okay, well, let's get stuff out and get out of here. This is where things got a little bit crazy. A little bit crazy is an understatement. 1 second, POTT. Gonna have a sip of tea for this next bit. So, picture this, people of YouTube, if you will. How I've described this pub, it's your usual kind of English style kind of like, pub. I don't remember what it would have been. I'm pretty sure it would have been my Marshall cabs going in the van first because they had to go in first and then Kyle's stuff was last because I had to drop him off at home. So there's no point putting his stuff in at the front of the van to have to kind of like drag all my stuff out. So it probably would have been my Marshall cab, my B cab to start with that we would have got in and Carl would have taken something of his to his car. So picture this. Marshall cab, I'm at the front, Carl's at the back, Carl's following, and we're walking. And as we're getting closer to the exit of this pub, big double doors, we can see flashing lights. And there is a cacophonous screaming noise of lots of people giving it the big one. I was just, when your stomach just goes, boom, it just falls out of you. So we were walking to the door, and I just remember opening the door. I can't remember if it was push or pull the door, but I remember walking out, and it was just pandemonium. This pub we were in was fighting full on with that pub over there, and it was kind of like that kind of like drunken brawling where no one's actually really kind of like fist fighting, so to say. That it's just kind of like flailing in, that kind of thing. But it was full on. There must have been about 40 people, easy 40 odd people, just laying into each other. But that wasn't the only thing. Right in front of us was a police riot van with them in the fight as well, trying to calm it down. They had this riot van of maybe about 6 coppers in riot gear, trying to break it up. And then behind that was another police car, and then there was another police car, and then there was a fire engine. It's so stupid. I love it. I absolutely love this thing. I love this story. I love having this story. I love that this actually happened. So, riot van, police car, fire engine. The fire engine couldn't get in. It dawned on me very, very quickly that we couldn't get out. I was terrified. And I think Kyle and Carl were terrified as well. We thought we were going to get dragged into this. Or someone was going to grab something of ours and use it as a weapon. And it was going to get trashed. We were going to get trashed. My van was literally there. And the fighting was literally there. Not even a stone's throw away, like literally maybe about 2 arm length away. There was people literally smashing each other's heads in, and then there was the coppers there with riot shields and batons and kind of like just trying to get people back and try and break people up and do what they can. And then there's other police officers trying to break things up and pull people away, and they're getting dragged off and put in the back of this riot van and in back of the police cars. And it's just like, what is going on? What is happening? It's like, it was just insanity. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. So, I remember looking at Kyle, and we both had the same thought of, we've got to go. We've got to get out of here fast. And no word of a lie, people of YouTube, I'm positive we loaded my van, which normally took maybe about 5-10 minutes. We loaded the van in maybe about 2 minutes. We got my double stack, my guitars, my pedal board, all the PA, Kyle's drum kit, all in the van, and got Carl's bass amp and all his stuff in his car in easy 2-3 minutes. We did it so fast. I think we were literally running. I don't remember. It was like a blank in my mind because I remember just being like, so hyper focused on, we've got to get out of here. We can't be near this. And we just ran backwards and forwards, getting stuff in the van. And I think we were just literally chucking it in. The Tetris effect of trying to get things nice and neat in the van so it fits nicely was out the window at this point in time. We had to get out of there very fast because we did not want to get dragged into it. But then when we finished loading in, we were like, how are we going to get out? We can't get out. There's a police car and a fire engine in the way. So when we went back out, luckily the fire engine had moved to the front of the pub we were in at this point in time. So as we came out, there was still the riot van, police car blocking the entrance. And you could see the fire engine was just off to the right side, lights on. I'm not sure what that was doing there. There wasn't a fire. I'm guessing it was just, extra backup, or if something kicked off or whatever. Anyway, he'd moved out of the way, and I walked up to this last police car. There was a copper just stood there, it's kind of like watching, obviously kind of like guarding, make sure no one got past him or what. I don't know what he was doing. But he was just stood there by his car, watching the chaos ensue. And I remember walking up to his copper, and I said to him, I said, "Hi, we've just played in this pub with the band tonight, and we need to get out. We're not part of this. We don't want any part of this. We just want to go home." And I just remember being really, like, I was terrified. You know when you're kind of like that terrified, you're on the verge of tears. You can almost feel your eyes welling up, and you don't really know what to do. You just want to get out of the situation you're in. And I think he saw that in my face. And I think that went a long way for him to let us go, which was very, very good. Anyway, he said, yeah, no worries, he said. What I'll have to do, though, he says, I'll have to escort you down the road. And I was like, we need a police escort. He says, yeah, there's people coming up the road and joining in on this fight. So, obviously, word had got about in this housing estate, there's a massive brawl going on. And there was people coming from everywhere to join in, which is just mental to me. So he said, what I'll do is, he says, I'll back out, I'll turn my car around, and if you can get out as quick as you can, I'll escort you down the road to the junction. At the bottom of this road, Cemetery Road, there's kind of like traffic lights that lead you onto the main road through Scunthorpe. Well, one of the main roads through Scunthorpe. And he said, I'll escort you as far as that, and once you get there, he says, I'll leave you and I'll come back here because I'm needed. And so I was like, yeah, okay, brilliant. So anyway, I ran back to Carl. Carl told him, so we're going to get a police escort out of here, which was mental. Can you imagine the chaos of what's going on? And again, by the way, all the time this is going on, it's a full-blown riot between these two pubs, screaming at each other and fights. It was just insanity. Anyway, I can feel that feeling now, Poochie. It's really, really freaking me out, actually, that how hysterically it makes me feel, but all at the same time it kind of freaks me out. So no, Carl got in the passenger side, I got in the driver's side, Carl got in his car, and I backed out, made sure Carl was behind me, and I flashed the police officer who turned his car around, and he led us out, and we drove down the road. And literally, as we were driving down this road, Cemetery Road, there was I remember the cemetery was on the left side, and as we were driving down it, there was just these people running up the road to join in with this fight. And we got to that junction. We didn't speak a word. Me and Carl were in silence. We didn't speak a word to each other this entire time. We were just driven down this road, and the cop car was in front of us with his lights going. And I just remember getting down to the junction, and there's kind of like this bit where it kind of pulls off, and then you go kind of like, so like, the cop car did this, and then we kind of did that to get, and then go left onto the main road. It's quite hard to describe that, actually. Anyway, he pulled over and flashed his lights, and it basically said like, be on your way. And we got onto that, and we got onto the main road, and we got out of Scunthorpe, and we started talking. It was one of those things of like, where there's so much adrenaline, you don't really know what to do. We were just in shock. It was just total shock, and I just made sure Carl was behind us all the way. I didn't want anyone to jump on his car or anything like that. I mean, it was just a full-blown riot. Anyway, we got out. We got away with only a broken PA speaker. I honestly thought something was going to go wrong. I honestly thought, like, literally, someone's going to come up to one of us and punch one of us, or drag us into the melee, or something's going to go wrong. The police are going to think we're part of it. They're probably trying to arrest us or what. My brain was in overdrive because it was absolute chaos. I didn't know what to do. I was just like, freaking out. Anyway, we got away. And again, I think the police officer who saw me when I went to speak to him saw this desperation in my face of like, we're not part of this. We need to get out of here. We're just musicians. We don't want our stuff trashing. We don't want to be part of a fight. We just want to go home. And I think he was kind of like very empathetic to us, and he just let us go. And again, to give us an escort as well, to make sure no one jumped on the car or my van or anything like that, or try and get us. I mean, I had the doors locked anyway. I made sure we were like, no one was getting in the van. And I just remember driving home, and just remember like, I must have got home about 1 o'clock or something like that at night. I don't remember me and Kyle talking the entire time we went back to Grimsby to drop him off, and I just remember being like a state of shock. And I remember just like speaking about it the day after, and just being like, holy hell, that actually happened. That was a thing. That actually happened. I experienced that. And it was utterly terrifying. It was terrifying. Looking back on it, it's really funny. But at the same time, utterly pant-wettingly terrifying. Like, I was bricking it, people of the tube. I do not mind saying I was scared. I was absolutely terrified that we were going to get dragged into this fight, and we were going to get arrested, or our equipment's going to get broken. At this time, I'm still gigging my white strap, my number one. I was terrified someone was going to nick it or break it. I mean, I had my other guitar with me as well, my black strap, my black Fender. I was terrified someone would break that, break my Marshall, break my pedalboard, nick my pedalboard, whatever. I was terrified something would happen to Carl or Kyle or their gear. It was absolute chaos. And I've never been that close to a riot before. I've been close to fights. When I used to go out in town, I was never really a night owl. I don't like going out. I don't drink, so it's not really a thing I like doing. But I've never been in so close to like a full-blown riot. It was scary. Very scary. And it's something that I will never forget. And it's something I definitely had to include in Geek Stories, because it's just one of those things of like, oh my god, that actually happened, And I say the perils of being pub musicians, people achieve there. It was just like, my god, that actually, this is scary. This isn't funny. This is just, it's funny now. All these years later, it's funny now. But at the point in time, I said again, I just remember walking out and just seeing that sea of people. The police cars, the fire engine, the noise. I don't think I'll ever get over that in a way, but it's kind of funny to look back at it, and it's always one of those kind of like things when people ask about Geek Stories. And that one, that's always, I always enjoy telling this story. It's quite fun, but my god, man, it's chaos. But anyway, that pub we played in, like I say, has burnt down now, and it was probably the other pub who did it. I don't know what's on that ground now, but I remember 2 or 3 years ago I went and looked on Google Maps at the pub to see if it's still there, or what's going on. And again, on Google Maps, it was just a burnt out shell of a building that had obviously just gone. It was a big building as well, people. It was a big building, so it must have been a hell of a fire. But yeah, so there you go. It's actually made me sweat, that story, because that is really crazy. Like, it brings it all back, but not in a kind of like PTSD kind of like you weren't there, man, you weren't there. It's more of a kind of like I say that, but it kind of is. It was traumatic. It was seeing this melee going on was crazy. I mean, what would I have been at the time? 25. I'd have been 25. And 2011, crikey. So no, it was 11 years ago. It's just absolute chaos. And I say it was terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. Anyway, there you go, people tube. There's another geek story for you. I'll do another one next month as well. The story I've got planned for next month is basically, if you could think it'd go wrong at a gig, it went wrong at a gig. Let's put it that way. And the really cool thing is, unfortunately, I don't have it here, but at some point I'm going to show you it. It won't be in that video, sadly, but at some point I'll kind of like do an amendment to that video. I actually recorded this gig, and the gig itself wasn't bad. But what happened, it was like a cursed gig. That's what I call it, the cursed gig. And that's probably what it'll be entitled as. Anyway, I'll talk about that more next month. Yeah. And I say, absolute chaos. I still can't get my head around what I actually witnessed though and saw, and it was traumatic. And again, it kind of scared me, to be honest with you, Pitcher. It made me very aware of some of these pub gigs we played in kind of built-up areas. I was always aware of. I was always aware. I'm a very paranoid person because of my history. So I'm a very paranoid around people. I'm scared of people. As simple as that. I'm just terrified of being in groups, big, large groups of people. I'm not a very comfortable human being. Let's put it that way. And again, I'm not going to be with what I went through. So, but that made me even more paranoid about kind of like some of these things. And I was always hyper aware after that, and I still am to this day hyper aware of that kind of behaviour at gigs and stuff like that. But yeah, so anyway, I hope you enjoyed this gig story, PewTube. It was absolute chaos. Like I say, I might call this one "It was absolute chaos." I don't know. I was gonna call this video "Ended Up in a Riot," which I think is more fun, and it did. So I don't know what to call this video now. It'll be in the title anyway. I'm having a crisis over what to call a video. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, PewTube. I hope you enjoyed this story, and again, I'll see you very, very, very soon for another video. I'm not sure what the next one's going to be at this point in time. I'm very undecided, but I'll see you on Wednesday for another vid anyway. Other than that, have a great morning, afternoon, good evening, PewTube. Have a great one. If you like the videos I do here as well, please consider becoming a patron at Patreon. Link to that is down there, as well as links to my music. There's a link to my Bandcamp down in the description box as well, where you can go and listen to the songs I've done, the songs I've done with the trio, John Joe and Queenie, songs I've done with just Queenie, songs I've done with just John Joe. But yeah, that's all in the description box below. So anyway, hope you enjoyed this vid, PewTube. This was a mental story. I'm actually sweating. Like, I'm really, really kind of like hot and sweaty from that one. It's actually kind of made me a bit like hard on my collar, but not in a good way. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this one, and I'll see you again. Have a great morning, afternoon, good evening. Goodbye now.